Hey everyone, in this video, I'm going to show you how to make 3 different types of lids. The first is going to be a flush lid, which means the lid sits flat alongside the lip of the form. Next will be a drop lid, which means the lid drops into the form. And lastly, a top lid, which sits on top of the form. For your flush lid, roll out a slab about 1/4 inch in thickness, flip the open side of your form onto the slab, and make an indent. This indent will help you be super precise. Now cut on the inside of that indent and throw the scraps away. Just kidding, never throw the scraps away. Set it aside in a bag so you can use it for a later project. Now make sure your lid fits, and if it's a little too big, carve out the excess. Honestly, I think I cut away a little too much. Oh well, I'll make another one later. Anyway, check to see if it fits, and let's move on to the next step. Roll out a coil about 1/4 inch in thickness. Roll, 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 keep rolling. Alright, now check to see if it fits around the circumference of your form. If it does, score one side of the coil. Now since I'm using bisqueware, I'm not really going to be able to score that, but since you're using actual clay for your main form, you'll have to score the side that it's going to attach to also. Add slip and attach about 1/4 inch below the lip, giving it some room for the lid to sit on. Remove the excess, reinforce the 2 ends of that coil, and reinforce it onto the walls of your form. Since that coil got a little bumpy while reinforcing, you might want to even it out with a thumb tool. Now use a damp sponge to smooth out the edges of the lid. Now let's make a knob for that lid. Simply grab a piece of clay, roll it up into a sphere, score one side of the sphere, and then score the part of the lid it's going to attach to, stick them together, and voila! Let's see if this works. Yep, what'd I say? It's not the perfect fit, but it works. Cool. Alright, now I'm going to show you how to make a drop lid. Honestly, there's lots of crossovers between flush, drop, and top lids. This one's going to be somewhat of a top lid, somewhat of a flush lid, and it's going to be somewhat of a drop lid. It's going to be flush from the sides, sit right on top, and it's going to have flanges that drop in. Alright, now what's a flange, you may ask? A flange is a part of the lid that helps the lid stay in place. For this lid, we're going with the pinch pot technique. Roll out a ball of clay, poke your thumb into the center, and rotate and pinch to make the walls thinner. Now we're going to check to see if it actually fits. Well, our lid is wide enough to sit on the lip of the form, but let's just press down on it to make sure it sits right. Before we move on to the next step, I'm just quickly going to make a knob for this guy. This one kind of reminds me of one of those SpongeBob sky flowers. Alright, now double check to make sure it sits right, and now we're going to make the flanges. Roll out a coil about 1/2 inch in thickness this time, and make sure it fits around the circumference of the lid. Alright, now flatten this coil out. This is going to create the length of the flanges. Compress both sides with a rib tool, and add some score marks onto one of the narrow sides. When you're scoring the section of the lid that the flange attaches to, make sure to score directly beside the lip, but not directly on the lip. Add some slip and attach your coil. Cut away the excess and make sure it fits on the lid before you actually start reinforcing it into place. If it fits right, go ahead and reinforce the two together. Oh, and don't forget to reinforce the ends of that coil to make it one continuous loop. Use the straight side of your wooden thumb tool or even your finger to create a nice angle between the flange and the lip of the lid. Now adjust the flange by flaring it out a little, and let's give it another try. And it fits! Success! Okay, now the last and final lid, the top lid. Top lids are typically created for forms with the lip indented inward. They're done this way on purpose so that the end result will end up with a jar and a lid that sit flush together when looking at it from the side. Alright, so for this lid, I'm going to go for a soft slab technique. Start off with a slab about 1/4 inch in thickness, compress both sides, and indent it. This time, instead of cutting out the lid from inside of the indent, we're going to leave about 1/4 inch on the exterior of that indent. Score all the way around in that excess area, and create a coil. Make sure that coil fits around the circumference of the circle we just made. We're going to flatten out this coil now, and we're going to compress it on both sides. With this one, we're going to work slightly more precise. I'm going to cut a straight edge alongside one side of that flattened coil. Now we're going to measure from the top of the lid to where our form starts to curve. I measured it to be about 5/8 of an inch. So I'm going to be super precise and make sure that my flattened coil is 5/8 of an inch running all the way through. After I've made a few indication marks, I could cut alongside that edge and create a perfect 5/8 strip. I told you this one was going to require some precision. Alright, so now I'm scoring the top edge of that 5/8 strip, and I'm going to add some slip and attach it to the circular piece. One important thing to keep in mind when you're attaching that strip is not to cover the circular indent mark we created earlier on. Alright, now cut off the excess, reinforce the two ends together, and let's test it out. Another perfect fit! Well, kinda. So while the lid is sitting on top of the form, we're going to reinforce it directly on there just so we don't change its shape. First I'm going to reinforce it with my wooden thumb tool, then I'm going to use my metal rib tool to smooth out that seam, and lastly, I'm going to use a damp sponge to really smooth it out. Alright, so for the knob on this guy, I'm going to make a little loop-de-loop. Yes, a loop-de-loop. I simply twisted a coil into a ribbon shape, slip and scored the attachment points together, removed away some excess, and I'm going to score the bottom of the loop-de-loop and the top of my lid and attach those together. And there you have it, the third and final lid. Alright, so let's review. We had the flush lid, pretty simple, pretty nice. And then we have the drop lid that dropped, oh, and it dropped. Let's see that again in slow motion. And that, my friends, is why it's called a drop lid. Just kidding, we can just adjust it real quick. Yep. Good enough. And lastly, our loop-de-loop top lid, which doesn't want to get off. Oh, cool, it fits. No, it works. Okay, bye!